Zoomi's prayers. We will hear the tick-tock. The laterite road ran behind our compound and on down the beach. From its turn into town, it passed by a tuberculosis colony, where I had once seen a snake which fully stretched across the road. Then past our neighbors, it trundled, Scots, British, Danish, and Ghanaian. We were the only Americans. The roar of the equatorial surf grew louder as we walked through the primitive native village. I could believe I was in a Tarzan movie. Our destination was the radio and hospital installation, ELWA, Eternal Love Winning Africa. Its staff belonged to Sudan Interior Mission. They were lovely people, and we were making good friends like Pete and Sadie, Ron and Joan Sonius. The Soniuses had moderate jobs with the radio staff and lived modestly on a paradise point of land which jutted into the Atlantic and was bordered by a beautiful lagoon. There were several of these along the coast, some magnificent, Roberts Field and Caesar's Beach. The lagoons were freshwater bulbs at the mouths of rivers, which sometimes poured through into the ocean. Fishermen dotted the roadways selling lobster, grouper, and barracuda, fresh from their dugout canoes. Before I left Liberia, I once paddled out with a small man in the pounding surf. The first fish caught was to be used for bait, but the small shark which flopped near our feet could not be cut with the turned edge of the plate my paddler had brought. Thus was my adventure brought short by poor planning. Yet as with anything in life, who knows what awaited us in the next gray, curling wave. The walk became jaunty, as they do when holding the hand of a 2-year-old. We had brought our children here from Minnesota, and their eyes were full of new adventures. This day was to be filled by an American tradition, a picnic and baseball game, played by the missionary kids. Most of the year they were long gone to their schooling in Jos, Nigeria. They were great kids and fine athletes, playing long games of touch football at the edge of the surf. One sideline was as deep as your legs could carry you. The dads waited each week for a Pan Am flight to deliver a large reel of film, last week's Monday night football game. Little Toddy and I had heard that one of the missionary houses had an alligator leashed in the backyard. Our eyes were darting everywhere, and our steps were stumbling. The field drew near. We strained through the laughter and cheering for the sound an alligator might make. Then Toddy said to me, "I know how we will hear him. We will hear the tick-tock, tick-tock." So Captain Hook had come to Africa, blending fantasy to reality. And Christ the Lord had followed on the wings of willing and earnest people. The missionary doctor was quite famous. I remember his assistant telling me during my bout with malaria that he was the only one of his medical classmates to believe in creation, in God, or in anything which he believed. My later career proved the point. Generally, physicians were intellectual agnostics, above the fray, so to say. This was the Liberia which we departed before its brutal, bloody coup, with 8-year-olds smoking dope and strapped to Kalashnikovs, the notorious AK-47. Later, I could not determine which of my students or their parents remained alive. Some were tribespeople and some Americo-Liberians, descended from the slaves sent there by President James Monroe, some 100 years before Liberia. Liberia had the largest per capita Peace Corps presence in the world, and we knew many of them. The U.S. military mission and United Nations staff were large relative to the population of 1 million. The clock in Liberia tick-tocked to 0. When the UN departed, the villagers returned to burning the bush to plant their rice, lowering their yield 100-fold, the inversion of the gospel message. In every way, the country reverted from civilization and from the gospel. Yet history has shown that the Lord works with small groups of powerless people, and all will come to be as it shall be. The TikTok is for all the nations and for each person. You have set the time for all peoples, for each of us, and for the last day. Thou, Lord of the beginning and of the end of all things. TikTok. Amen.